Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up the bedroom is even better. Whether you're buying a gift for your sugar baby or just for yourself, you can get 50% off at adamandeve.com when you enter the code CANDY at checkout.
And that's not all. Adam and Eve will include 10 tantalizing free gifts, a sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item all partners can enjoy. Plus, you'll receive 6 free spicy movies.
But the best part is the free shipping.
You can get all of this at adamandeve.com using code CANDY at checkout.
That's CANDY.
So Shelby, what are you getting me?
Candy Girl Podcast. Fuck me, daddy.
Hey all you candy sluts and bubble butts, welcome back to another episode of Candy Girl. I'm one of your hosts, Emily.
I'm Shelby.
And I'm Cactus.
And Leia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Leia Salanganisa. I am a drag queen currently living in Los Angeles. I'm from San Jose, California. And before that, I was living in San Francisco. But I am here to talk about law, which everyone wants to learn about. So, before I was a drag artist, I was doing sex work, and I still am. And so that kind of evolved into a passion, weirdly, for academia. So then my research focus in grad school was a lot about sex work, and then eventually I dropped out of studying sex work, but still kept doing it, which is best of both worlds. And so now I'm here and I'm happy to be here. So thank you for having me.
Left out the part where you went viral on TikTok, but don't worry,
Oh, yes.
we'll hype you up for you.
Yes, that happened. I forgot. That's why I'm here. So
Yeah, your TikTok went so viral that I was seeing it on my non-sex work Instagram. I was so glad that I was able to see it, because then I sent it over to Candy Girl's Instagram and we posted it on our story. Since that TikTok, Sissia has died. However, that does not mean there aren't going to be other bills proposed that are harmful towards sex workers. So even though we're celebrating that the bill died, we are still trying to fight for sex workers' rights and be wary of future bills. But Leia, would you kind of explain to anybody who doesn't know what Sissia is, what the bill is, and what it does?
yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because so the bill is the Stop Internet Sexual Exploitation Act, and it was introduced by these two senators who are Jeff Merkley and Ben Sasse. So it's both Republican and Democrat. I forgot who's who. But that bill, it was introduced on December 18th. So that was not even a month ago, at the end of last Congress. And then I did go viral talking about that, which is really funny because I guess I didn't know the extent to which, you know what, I think I was pretty aware of how big-ish that video became because of all the hate mail I was getting. I learned that cash is pronounced cash, not cake, among many things. But that bill, like many bills before it, it is an attempt to, on the surface, it's saying that pornographic uploads are requiring verification and kind of hotline, and it kind of makes platforms more accountable for uploading material that might be abusive or illegal. But at the same time, because if it's bad writing, if you want to think about it in an innocuous way, it's bad writing, in quotes, it does a lot of things that are weird. It would ban pornographic downloads, which is how a lot of sex workers make money. That itself is not even identified. So a lot of people were saying, well, technically, maybe even visiting any not safe for work website would be illegal under this bill. And then other weird things, it kind of, because of its language, it's made video uploads legal in accordance with state to age of consent laws, which technically creates grounds for underage pornography to be uploaded. Although the debate is would that actually be enforced? And a lot of people like myself think probably not, but it's still a bad bill for that reason. So yeah, that's just the broad overview. It's just this really horrible bill. And then I made that TikTok Because maybe because of like the COVID cycle or like the whatever insurrection that was happening that week, like it just wasn't being talked about. And so I was like, well, I'm trying to do more like transformation videos anyways, so like I might as well like talk about, legal stuff harming people while I put on makeup and a costume. So, does that answer the question? Was that like a
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we wanted to know. So yeah, this is not the first time we've seen a bill similar to this. We talked about the Earn It Act in a previous episode, and of course, FOSTA SESTA is a huge one. So sex workers, arguably, honestly, not even arguably, are being targeted, especially by the government. So, yeah, because we are seeing bill after bill that's targeting sex workers, that's the reason why a lot of sex workers are preparing themselves for another one, even though Sissia has died. I guess, Leia, in your opinion, like, what's the threat of sex work?
I guess like do you mean like why is everyone like cracking down like right now? Like
Yeah.
that's a very good question. I mean, what isn't the threat? It's a patriarchal, like cis hetero, white supremacist government, like that has always cracked down on sex workers. I think what's interesting now, oh, actually, yeah, what's interesting now, because sex work has seen not a lot, but like such freedom, like online. Like during the pandemic, kind of OnlyFans was like the word of the year last year because that's when like subscriber based sex work that was online like entered like the public imagination, you know what I mean? And so Sissia in many ways was like a retaliation against that, and you can't really argue that it wasn't because it's uncanny how like it addresses how people were just like surviving during the pandemic, how that bill was threatening that. But I think it's interesting that, yeah, as you said, there's this misconception that the bill is dead. It is dead in terms of like the congressional calendar expired, so it would have to be reintroduced. But in my opinion, and not to be like, doomsday 2012, but like in my opinion, it's inevitable that some form of it will be reintroduced and will pass because there's just no way it won't because that kind of legislation has such bipartisan support. And the Democratic Party doesn't really care about protecting sex workers or NSFW creators, because the Democrats also passed FOSTA SESTA, and Kamala Harris was like one of the biggest supporters of it. So it's that question kind of scares me because it's like the threat. I mean, for kind of obvious reasons, it will always be a threat, but kind of the way it's getting cracked down, like we've kind of never really seen before, like sex work online being targeted and being inflated with like trafficking, you know. So I hope that answers the question, but I think, in my opinion, it's only kind of the crackdown is only really kind of increasing.
Yeah, as a sex worker too, I've definitely seen, especially since Sesta Fosta, I think that was one of the things that really started this like tumbleweed of things just getting worse and worse for us. I saw your tweet calling out APAG Union, and I saw that they blocked you. So I was interested to hear about that story and what if that's resolved or why you think they blocked you and what you were trying to speak about.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now that you bring it up, I low-key regret those tweets because I was a little too like, you motherfuckers. Like, like I was maybe a little too aggressive, but I was really annoyed because, I had just come off of, because, I made those TikToks, they went really viral. And then I was getting all this kind of mail, like messages about how people should respond in reaction to it. So people were just, and still are in this, and have been in this mindset of like, oh, holy shit. And then so kind of to see this organization, which is like the Adult Performing Actors Guild, I believe, kind of, I mean, I wasn't that nuanced. TBH, because my TikTok was 60 seconds and there was a lot in there I did not expand upon. And so there's a lot of people were like criticizing me for. So I get it because they were tweeting about the bill dying. They only had 300 characters to tweet. So it's not necessarily their fault. Like they're not bad people. They don't do bad work. But I was kind of, like perturbed because the tweet was like, "Oh, the bill is dead, like it's a victory." But then, in my mind, especially if you're a union, you shouldn't say that because it's kind of like a blanket statement, like, "Oh, it's gone." You know what I mean? And had only been like 3 weeks since the bill was introduced. And granted, the congressional calendar refreshed, so technically the bill was like out the door. But FOSTA SESTA took 13 months to be passed. But that was in the same Congress, so you can argue, well, it's the same Congress, blah 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 blah. But like, the threat of Cecilia, it was still just like 3.5 weeks old when they tweeted that. So I kind of messaged them, and I kind of maybe passive aggressively, I don't know, I've been accused, but I said like, oh, it's irresponsible to say that because then a lot of people, it kind of kills the movement, and people are just now educating themselves about like what this is, how to prevent it, who to donate to. And so for like the union to say like, oh, no, there's nothing to worry about, and then I think I wasn't the only one, I was not the only one, definitely, saying this to them, because other people I saw were also saying, well, technically the bill can't die because for the bill to die, the issue has to die. So, human trafficking has to end, or like sex worker phobia has to end. That didn't happen. And so it's like, I messaged, and then they were kind of just like, oh, I interpret it as like, oh, you're wrong. Like we clarified, or we're going to clarify. And then they issued a clarification that wasn't really a clarification in my mind because it still wasn't really summoning people as to what to do. And if you know my background, like, I'm an activist, I'm an organizer. I started in ethnic studies in San Francisco. And so like my background is in like teaching like critical race. In addition to sucking dick, my background is in teaching anti-racism. And so I was really perturbed. And from kind of an activist point of view, I was like, this isn't really good mobilization. Like, should kind of do better. But, like those girls, like maybe it was mean of me because, they have, their faces on the cover of like the header on Twitter. So they're not bad people at all. Like, they're very good people. But it was just like, like, we don't need, at the moment when everyone is just getting educated, like we don't need the union to say like nothing to worry about. And then what also bothered me, if you want the tea, maybe it's not really tea, but they met with the Senate committee that introduced the bill, because like the committee has to introduce the bill for it to get to the floor, and the committee was like, told them like, oh yeah, well, the bill died. But it's also like, well, what's the committee, that's what they're supposed to tell you because they're the committee. It's like kind of saying, I don't know what the example would be. Like, are you going to prosecute Donald Trump? And then the Democrats have to say, well, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, but is that going to happen? You know what I mean? It's kind of like formality, And so, and then they kind of said like, oh, well, we have meetings with senators lined up. And then it's kind of like, well, in my opinion, if you have meetings with any politician, it should be transparent. Like there should be like memos, and you should release it to the public. I don't know, like, but like, so that was also kind of a grievance that I had. And then, so I expressed this to them, and then they blocked me, to answer your question. And then I was like, oh, fuck this shit. Like really, like the porn union is mad at me. Like why, how did I get the porn stars union like mad at me? And so I was like, it's not gonna go viral the same as my original videos, but I'm just gonna share on Twitter and message the people who I think would reshare. And I was like, just so you know, this happened. Like it's like it's misinformation in a way. And so I hope that answers your question. But it was like a grievance. And I'm a little bit ashamed because I was so pissy. But at the same time, you're a union, So like, I don't know. That's my answer.
I thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's definitely strange for a union who I believe should be a little bit more open-minded, or at least willing to hear conversations rather than block the person that is trying to reach out to them. I feel like they're stopping something that could help everybody rather than they're stopping the conversation. They're not allowing you to be able to have a platform or to talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, I was annoying. So it's not the first time I've been blocked
Well,
by
a
unions.
little
I'm just
bit
kidding.
rightfully so. I don't see. I understand where you're coming from with your tweet about that and why. Sure, like there's definitely. It's a very vague headline, like this died. Sure, okay, great, but I understand what you mean. Like it stops the movement. It's like okay, it's dead, and then all I saw after that was tweets from my sex worker friends being like, oh, it's dead, yay. And then I even was part of that. I don't think I tweeted, but you know, like I definitely talked to some of my friends about it, but I didn't even think that it could come back, but of course, like it just makes sense from what I've seen in the past for different things. Like you said, Sesta Fosta took 13 months. People will continue fighting for this kind of stuff, which is unfortunate for, you know, sex workers' well-beings, and we're constantly on like the fight side of things, and you know, it can be exhausting constantly being on the defense. So thank you for what you're doing with your activism. I'm actually really curious as to, like, you said that you have an activism background besides sucking dick, and I'd really love to hear more about your activism. And you said there was a group that you started.
Yeah, so well, I don't know about the group that I started. I mean, you know, because I started in college in theater, and then I moved into Asian American studies, and so I'm theater kids unite as current sex workers in adulthood. But
Oh my gosh, get me out of here. I found a way to surround myself with theater kids. I was on the robotics team. This is not what I imagined happening to me.
yeah, but and so I moved into Asian American studies in San Francisco, and yeah, San Francisco kind of has like that history of like, you know, like anti-racist like activism, especially like at the universities. And then I was teaching as part of this Filipino, like Asian American like organization called Pinoy Panay Educational Partnerships. And so we're like based in like, so that was kind of like my routine, like teaching in like a middle school, like anti-racism and trying to teach like queerness, like middle school students for like a very short time. And then that kind of moved me into like students mentorship, like affairs. Like that, a lot of my jobs were like that. And I was like doing a lot of like writing pedagogy stuff. This is like boring because most people ask about like the drag, you know, like not like the, oh, so, you know, school, but like.
I'm actually personally super interested in this.
Yeah. And then you know, and then I moved. Oh, but and you know, sex work was kind of concurrent to that because, you know, when I was 18, I lost my under the table job at a Korean fried chicken restaurant. And so I was like, fuck, I have no money. I have to pay rent. Like, gotta give the white men, you know, like the Bangkok experience. Yeah, I'm not Thai, but like, and then I did that for like a little bit. And then it's so interesting because I moved into the teaching stuff, and then I got into grad school. So I moved to LA to go to UCLA. And then it was between that and like Santa Barbara, because I also got into UC Santa Barbara's like feminist doctoral program. And so but I decided to go to LA because I wanted to do drag. So that was like my excuse, was like, and like fully knowing that I would drop out of grad school, I moved to LA and like played the grad school game for like 6 months. But I only went to like 4 classes, and I was like missing all, and everyone was like, where the fuck did he go? And then and you know, I was studying sex work and really looking into like race and technology and like affect, things like that. Like, and then but it wasn't satisfying, and so like I moved away from that to do more drag, because at that point like I was just all about drag. This is like early last year, and then like late last year before, so 2019, 2020, before the pandemic. And then but that experience of like technology and, you know, studying sex work and studying porn, like kind of led me to really thinking a lot about technology, kind of like from a humanities, like really heady, like, you know, like Stanley Kubrick, like robots, like point of view. So law is not my background, but I think like how we interact with technology, like that really is like what I'm obsessed with. And so like I'm happy it helped me, because I couldn't have imagined like, oh shit, like a year later, you know, I'd be making these weird viral TikToks, you know, about censorship. So
Ooh, let's talk about tech and how people interact with tech.
I love that.
I'm a software engineer, so that's what I was excited to ask you about. So I guess tell us about your research, your findings.
Oh my gosh.
Just wherever you want to start.
Oh my, I don't know if like your audience would probably like fall asleep. Like really hope they're not driving because this is about, hopefully if we make them laugh then they won't. But like I was that was macabre. I apologize. But yeah, I mean, because, you know, my background is in anti-racism, and so my stuff was all about, like, it's not like research, it's like theorizing, you know, and so it was a lot about, this is like my statement, so I didn't ever complete a thesis, but like my research statement was about, like, looking into sex technologies like dildos, webcams, the exchange of tokens, how like your image can appear on thousands of websites at once, and thus like your body is appearing on like thousands of websites at once, and like in the context of like race and orientalism, like what does that mean for like an Asian body such as myself, or like a body of color, to put themselves on the internet and like be digested in that way? Like what does that mean for like sex to be this immediate exchange thing and like this global sex economy? And this is like even before OnlyFans was like super huge, but it was still there. Because I was thinking more like Chatterbait, you know what I mean? And like, what does it mean for like that to be like how we interact with sex and race, like in the 21st century, and like how we interact with like the Oriental like specter. And so like, didn't find any answers to that because I left. But that was like my focus. And I was really inspired. And I met with Murray Miller Young, who is, and if, yeah, this is something your readers, it's not like a column. This is a podcast. But your readers, you know, Murray Miller Young, who's at UC Santa Barbara, talks a lot about like Black women in porn and kind of like that industry. So she's like a porn historian. And so it's all those people like, but that, you know, if anyone really wants to read like a good book, I think it's called like The Taste of Brown Sugar, and it's about like the history of like Black women and like pornography, like this 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like 2000s, like, so that's like an interesting research. Oh, you should have her on, totally. Like, and she would know like sex workers as well, like if you haven't had, but you know, she's like an academic, but a really cool person, really funny.
I hope we're worthy.
Well.
Oh my gosh, what a bad bitch.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. But sorry to bore you, but that's like my background.
Don't worry, did not bore at all.
I'm interested in the term global sex economy. That's the first time I had ever heard those three words together.
Yeah, so part of my statement of purpose was kind of like, you know, like in kind of the porn research, sex work research, like feminist research, like there is like an awareness of like, you know, the sex trade is online and thus it's like global, you know what I mean? There's not so much research on like the technology, like the dildos, like the lush, whatever, like vibrating in your asshole, like
Yeah, the lush.
Yes, the Love Ends something, but like
Yes.
yeah, I love that. We love Love Ends. They're not a sponsor, but we love them. Please sponsor. But kind of so I guess to put it in the context of Cecilia, there is this global sex economy now, and OnlyFans is like just for fans, the best example of that. How like the sex trade kind of maybe has really liberated itself from like in-person kind of policing, because thanks to like Section 230 and all these like the way the internet has been built, which is slowly going to change now, which is scary. You know, sex work has mostly-ish been allowed to exist in relative peace online up until Fosta Sesta, up until like all the social media crackdowns. And so, you know, my research was like kind of was directly writing about that in a different, but kind of like, oh, here's like this different way to perceive it along race and technology. But along lines of law, kind of like the subject of the podcast today, segue, but like we're seeing like more and more like legislation that is trying to like regulate the global sex economy that is online. And so like Section 230, which is gonna like, that is kind of why OnlyFans, Just for Fans, Pornhub, like whatever, Reddit, Twitter, like why they exist, you know, is kind of being attacked by like both parties in the United States. And because most social media platforms are housed in the US, that would kind of affect sex workers globally. You know what I mean? Because it's like internationally, people, unless there's like censorship in the country, people are using like just for fans, OnlyFans, like Reddit, Twitter to make a living. But it's scary because there's more, as Cecilia says, and this is why, like on the subject of it's not dead, like the if you think the regulation has stopped, it hasn't. It's just really gaining momentum, and especially in context of like all the Section 230 controversy because of like Donald Trump. And so it's like, I don't know, get those email lists ready because if OnlyFans shuts down, we're gonna be sending ravens to like sell SD card porn.
That's an incredible and really sad way to think about it. One thing that I love about, I don't know if you follow Amberly PSO, but they have a great platform where they talk a lot about just like safety and being prepared for what will happen in case, like just always having a backup plan. And email lists are definitely on that. Like you said, email is going to be one of the only things that we're going to be able to communicate with each other if they keep shutting down our platforms. Are there other things that you've seen, like other platforms, or something that you think is going to stick around, or what do you think may be taken away from sex workers in the future? Is there any research or just any like projections you think you would see?
Oh Lord. So as a sex worker and as someone who like has sold content online, like I really do, if you ask me, again, not to be like doomsday, I really do think, because, like OnlyFans is so already like anti-sex work, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people don't want to think, like it's already so like policing, monitoring of like what you can post, already like screwing so many people over. And there's all these like theories as to like why OnlyFans, like that dude who owns it and like how he runs scams. And so like I've talked to other sex workers who are like, like be prepared to switch platforms. I think that Section 230, which is part of the Communications Decency Act, and that is what makes websites not liable for being sued by what users post. Like, I do think that that in like the next however many years, very soon, even under a Democratic Congress, will be reformed in some way. But because what Democrats have shown is that like the legislation against it is so sweeping, and they just want to coerce people, what platforms to kind of like banning content through vague language. I do think this is just the age now where like Cecilia introduced it, Earn It introduced it, Fosta Sesta really was one of the first to introduce it, where the subscription model is, getting under attack, like selling your own content online is gonna be under attack. I think another prediction I have, and this is, I'm not like a legal scholar, I just like sort of went to grad school, sort of have friends who do sex work, sort of like, entertain the straight daddies online. Like, I think hopefully what we can maybe hope for, I don't know what you think about this, if you want to respond, but like if bigger platforms co-opt that OnlyFans model, because there's so much like perilousness, like OnlyFans and then followed by Just for Fans being like the only way you can really monetize and really like ways that appeal to like the public. You know what I mean? But I think I don't think the model is going away, but it's going to be attacked.
A lot of these big tech platforms, there should be more regulation. Why do they have to start with this? Can't they start with like anything more important? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Can't they start with like the fascism? You know what I mean?
Oh my God, misinformation is so dangerous. And I was listening to a really good podcast. Shelby recommended it to me. I'm blanking on the name. You're Wrong About. And it was talking about losing relatives to Fox News and how people will see headlines. And if they see it over and over again, that little nugget becomes like what they think is fact. But there are so many misleading headlines. I see misleading headlines on Facebook all the time. I read the articles, I report it, I go back to the source. People care, but they don't, like, people don't give a fuck because journalists are still doing it, clearly. So of all regulation, why sex workers first? I don't think any of us can answer that.
Gwenadora actually posted something right when your TikTok went viral and everyone was talking about Sissia, about how sex workers are the guinea pigs on what kind of cyber laws can be passed and the kind of censorship that they can do. So it's probably it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like, I think. Oh, sorry, we're gonna say something. I don't really have a thought.
It's definitely also related to Sesta Fosta, as we know, which was the bill that took away liability. So it actually, from the people who posted, but put the liability on the companies. So Facebook is now liable for all porn or whatever that's uploaded because of sex trafficking, quote unquote. Actually, I think we talked about this in a past episode, but Facebook has like thousands more cases of sex trafficking and child porn than Pornhub does. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh my
But
gosh. I did not know
it's
that.
really Ashley Lake on Twitter did a great thread about it. But Sesta Fosta was one of the main reasons that we've started seeing these implications of us getting shut down, is because Sesta Fosta created, liability onto the company, but it was for sex trafficking, so they think that they are trying to be vigilant and do all the things to be able to not be liable. But they're doing it with sex workers first because, of course, technically, if we're exploiting ourselves, it's technically sex trafficking ourselves, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because I'm not exploiting myself, I don't believe. But under the definition of like soliciting or anything, like that's now in the Instagram terms of service that just came out on December 20th. No more posting links. Like, actually, even celebrities have been suspended for posting their OnlyFans links. I know a bunch of my friends have. There's a lot of things that are definitely happening against sex workers constantly, I think because of Sesta Fosta, but then we constantly have these new bills like Sessia, or people just trying to reintroduce things because they just want to, like, they're like, this is not enough. I still see people in bikinis on Instagram and I'm uncomfortable. My penis cannot handle this. Too much horny. What to do?
Yeah. I think that, it's really interesting that you bring that up, like, because the legislation that, like, sex workers are exploiting themselves, like, kind of going back to the notion that, like, the censorship and oppression is bipartisan. If I'm not wrong, I think that, like, that was introduced by, like, the Clinton administration because the Trafficking Victims Prevention Act in, like, 2000, which was, like, authored by Bill Clinton, like, that was correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really know, but, like, that was the bill that determined voluntary sex work is legally the same as trafficking. So, like, even before, like, the internet was like the internet, it kind of created the grounds for, like, sex workers to be prosecuted even more along the lines of anti-trafficking law. And then it's also international because the United Nations, like, the same year, which was 2000, they they said the same thing as well. And so it was like this resolution that the United States and the UN passed the same year. And then the UN, I think, was asked to, like, clarify it in 2014. And then, like, they reiterated, like, oh yeah, voluntary sex work is like sexual abuse and sex trafficking. And so it's like, I don't know, like, how can you escape? You know what I mean? It's just, like, really scary. And all these laws are, like, combining. And then and it's interesting to note that, like, even if like nothing is passed, like, officially, the platforms on their own will just censor in response to, like, the atmosphere of, like, the legal atmosphere. So, like, I don't really know if anything, correct me if I'm wrong again, if, like, was really passed before, like, the latest, like, Instagram crackdown. Like, they just decided to do it because it was just like, well, this is just, like, the conversation in, like, the Capitol is, like, this, censoring, banning NSFW content because of trafficking. And so, like, all these social platforms are just doing that. Even ironically, even OnlyFans is, like, doing that, cracking down, like, in a what is it, like, there's, like, a word. It's not, like, gross, obscene. Like, obscene stuff is not allowed to be published. And it's like, isn't your whole website obscene? Like the non-sex workers are only 10% or 11 of, like, their income, their profit. So.
Yeah, I do remember when I joined OnlyFans in 2018, it was like sex workers. It was definitely the credit card processors and everything. Like they set it up so it would be available for sex workers, or else we wouldn't be using it today. Patreon and stuff, their credit card processors don't like that people were posting NSFW stuff. So they started cracking down on sex workers, which is why they started moving to OnlyFans, which is what I did. And it's very interesting to see just like these platforms that were technically made for us, but censoring us at the same time. I know I personally have had emails. I've had to delete hundreds of posts because they had content that quote unquote wasn't allowed, even though it's allowed on a lot of other things. So it's P. So P isn't allowed on OnlyFans, but yet you can squirt on OnlyFans. So it's like you could technically say that I'm squirting, but like I'm not. Like, we all know it. But even with that, or you can't solicit for other websites on there, they'll ask you to take things down. So I do know that a portion of their people are not adult creators. I know that they made that website and they're constantly pushing that. I have never pushed or promoted an adult creator ever. They only do like baseball, basketball players, musicians. They only talk about everything around it because they know that they can make money off of us, and they know that they can just use us to be able to, like Bella Thorne made them millions of dollars, of course, and just all these different people constantly joining to put their nudes out there, and they're just wanting to make money and be a part of the platform. So I know that there are people out there and they're pushing that, but they're absolutely censoring and trying to push us out, which is so unfortunate because where do we go next? It's constantly from one site to another. They did that with Tumblr. They did that with even now Twitter. I was wearing a thong, and unfortunately that is too much booty in my header, so they had me change it, and I was almost suspended for a few days because of it. So there's definitely a lot of censorship happening, whether or not these bills are being actually passed or dying or whatever. This is just constantly a battle of, okay, where do we go next? We'd have a backup plan to the backup plan to the backup plan. Always have multiple sources of income. It's just very difficult for us out there for sure. But I think what me and a lot of other sex workers really appreciated about your TikTok was it was so informative in the 60 seconds that you had, because I know you said you couldn't put everything, but gosh, there was a lot of information in there, and then things that I hadn't even heard. So you mentioned something about like, was it child pornography or like there's something about underage or that they wouldn't check or because of the age of consent, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so so that's part of like why the bill was like so poorly written, was because it made there's a part in the bill that specifies uploads should be according to state's age of consent law. The issue is that like some states have like age of consent laws that are like under the age of 18. And so with even the writing of the bill doesn't make sense, which kind of shows that like the people making the legislation don't really know what they're writing about. They just know what they want to not see and censor, and who they kind of want to like oppress and like limit on the internet. It's interesting. Well, thank you for saying that there was like information in it. Like, I'm so happy. You do not know the amount of people who were like, this fucking idiot pronounces it as cake, like a fucking pastry. It's pronounced cash. And I was like, hundreds of messages.
Okay, that aside, people love to, I think that's also why things on TikTok get viral, is because people put something in the background or they say one word wrong and that's all they comment on. So like, I think that was just helping you get people to see it.
True,
I'm sorry that you had trolls, but I think it helped expand who saw your stuff, which I think is really, really
true.
cool.
It got me to like the tech bro crowd. Like, and then
the tech bros can literally be the fucking worst.
Oh my god! Like,
I mean, I deal with them. Like,
so many were like, I don't like. So many people were just, I don't give a shit. Like, if porn gets taken away, it's gross. And I'm like, you are like the ones like cumming your pants. Like, excuse me. Like, what is gonna happen to like you're the one who's also gonna suffer. Like, everyone will be hurt. And then Oh, and then like after that, like a lot of the messages were also, as you were saying, Cactus, with like, oh, people being like overwhelmed. There was so many people messaging me who were just like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, I'm so sad. Like, this is giving me like a panic attack, which is like, right? Like, that is a righteous way to react. And then I was like responding to all these people. I was like, you really have to believe in your resiliency because like, Fosta Sesta passed and then OnlyFans became a bigger thing than it was. So like there's no telling what platform will come out or how people will make a living. Like it will happen, you know what I mean? But like trust that you can survive. And then it came to this point where I was just like so tired because I was getting all this hate and all like the tech bros, like what you're saying, Emily, were just, and then like some people like making furry art were just, yeah, fuck that shit. And it's like, like the bill talks about like lewd hand-drawn content. So like even people in like hand-drawn kinks, like that was gonna be suspended too. And then like I got so tired, and then I was kind of doing the wrong thing, which is I was trying to respond to every single person. And some of my friends were like, that was so noble of you, but we can see why you're so tired. And then I was just so burnt out. And then I told someone who is a sex educator and whose name is La Femme Papi on Instagram. Really cool person, also an educator, San Francisco. And then like this person sent like this really like beautiful like 3-minute message that was like, I see what you're doing. You're probably really tired. And so like, here's how to take care of yourself. Like completely out of nowhere. I just got like this really long message and I was like, oh fuck. It's like, here's like this 3-minute audio message of someone calling me like a fag. I don't fucking know. And so it really showed me like the power of community. And there's so many educators out there, even people like kind of on their own like me, just like doing TikTok, like doing Instagram posts, like even this podcast. That it was a really beautiful kind of experience because there was just so much like humanity. Even if people were like, you're a fucking idiot because it's pronounced cash. Like there was like a lot of really cool people.
I bet most of them don't even understand how caching works, for fuck's sake.
I don't know how it works. And they were like, this idiot doesn't know how it fucking works. And I was like, you're right. Like, I don't fucking know. But like, I don't know, people buy my nudes. So like, at least like, I can like, I have something to say. But I was just like.
That's so unnecessary of them. Ugh.
I was like, I don't care. Like, and then I was like, if cookies is pronounced cookies, why is cake pronounced cash? It should be cake. Like, it's all pastry themed. Like desserts. That's my ADHD mnemonic.
The internet is just one big bakery.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, like, but all sides of the internet, and then, like, the right, like, the conservative side of Instagram discovered my Instagram, and then like I was blocking so many people, as I'm sure you three have done, I'm sure. But like I was like, holy fuck. And it's so funny because I don't know if we have to wrap up soon, but like I made that TikTok and like 12 hours had passed, and then me and like my partner were gonna watch like Lord of the Rings, and then we were about to watch the first one because I'd never seen it, and then I was just like, oh, like I made this TikTok, like I only had like 10 views. Like I'm like, I'm happy it's there, but like I wish I had gone viral. And then like halfway through, because those movies are like 10 hours long, like because the movie is basically a documentary about about like dwarves walking. I don't know if that's the politically correct term, but like yeah, exactly. So like halfway through we paused, and then like it just blew up in the span of like an hour, and I was like, oh my God, my wish came true. And now I know it's pronounced cash.
That's the real moral of this here, is that it's pronounced cash. That's the only thing we really wanted to tell you guys through this episode.
Yeah. Yes.
It's okay. I had a TikTok that got 300 likes and I was also getting cyberbullied. And I was like, damn, this is what fame feels like.
That's crazy. Like, why? Like, why even? And then, like, I was spreading the hate back. But before I was triggered into doing that, I was entertained by it because I was, like I'm here like living my best life. Like it impacts your ability in my mind like to manifest and like make stuff happen if you just post hate. Because it's like if you're posting hate, what does that say about your personal relationships or like your level of busyness? Like it just means that you're just being a hater. Like you're not adding to your life because you're like living in like negative energy. I don't know. That's like my my spiritual like reading of it.
Amazing. Well, Leia, we are coming up on time, but I want to hear about the XOXO show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so surprised you asked about that. So me and my friend who Cielito Thea, and they are a screenwriter and kind of film buff filmmaker in LA, and they were in grad school when I was in undergrad, and that's how we met, was through like teaching and like organizing. But we moved to LA kind of at the same time. And then we're both huge fans of drag and all forms of drag. And we were just like, oh, we want to make, and we're both like trans, non-binary. So we were like, yeah, let's make like this Black, Indigenous, POC inclusive show with just trans and gender expansive, gender non-conforming like people. And like, and then we haven't had one in a bit because like really COVID got to our families, and also the stress with COVID got to our families. So we had to put it on the back burner. So the show is still growing, but yeah, that's like our project, and I've always wanted to host, and they've always wanted to produce. And so our first show, which was in like September, I forgot how much we raised. It was over like, I want to say $2,000. So we were able to pay all our performers like a big, like when it's split, like a good, not really great, but like a good amount of money. Yeah, thank you for clapping. But like they can't hear because like our microphones are muted, but Cactus was just clapping. And so it's like I have to lie about it so your audience thinks that like you're happy about
I am
these
genuinely
views.
happy.
But, yeah, so we're trying to bring it back like February or March, or like in the spring, early spring. But if you're a trans performer of any kind, we've had like drag artists, comedians, musicians, people who do spoken word. So if any listener, anyone you know is of that, a gender expansive person of color, or even just like an ally and want to like support, yeah, check us out. We're XOXO the show on Instagram, and I am Leia_Salonganisa on Instagram. And Salonganisa is like this Filipino pun for people like wondering why my last name is so complex.
I'm definitely going to start following XOXO the show right now, like on my Instagram. It's up. That sounds really incredible. Is there a way that you can watch things online? Do you do live shows, or is there a way that we can support the show?
Oh, wait. So, I mean, always I'm doing something semi-frequently. I have a show this Saturday. So I guess the day after this podcast comes out, I have an SF online show. And on my Instagram, which is Leia_Salonganisa, so my name, I'm always just having shows. And then we're going to bring back XOXO the show. And I'm also raising money for my friend, one of my best friends, Serena, who's trying to get her gender affirmative surgery. So that's also on my Instagram if anyone's interested in donating to my friend. And there's also, just to also plug, there's also donating to organizations like the Sex Workers Outreach Project in LA, like the organizations that are doing in-person and also like online advocacy. So Sex Workers Outreach Project. There's St. James Infirmary in San Francisco, which is like a peer-to-peer client, a sex worker health and community clinic. And there's also, oh my gosh, there's another organization that you can donate and check out, which is called, it's like / it's like online. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I totally blanked.
Hacking Hustling.
Hacking Hustling, yes, hackinghustling.org, hacking / hustling. Yeah, and then I always say like you support your NSFW creators. Like that was the time to subscribe because it might go away. So send us your money, and then subscribe, and just all NSFW and lewd and creators online they really need your support. So just please circulate the money and keep the economy going.
Leia, you wrap that up beautifully. Usually we have to like prompt people and be like, hey, now plug all your stuff. But you did that. We didn't even have to say anything. Amazing.
I've had my fair share of like interviewing people. And so sorry if I was like really taking the reins.
Oh, no, this is awesome. Thank you.
I've also. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And I really love the work you're doing. And, it's such a great experience to be here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show with us. And for those listening, Leia's episode is going to be on our website, candygirlpodcast.com, along with a bunch of other fun things that you can find on our website, or you can find our Instagram at candygirlpodcast or our Twitter at candygirlpod. Thank you so much for listening, and we will hear from you guys next Friday.